Hello, and welcome to the last part of our virtual series, Santa Barbara Belonging, commemorating Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Tonight's event is titled A Cultural Celebration, and we are excited to share these special performances that highlight the stories, dance, and music that make our AAPI experience unique. We filmed all of these amazing performances at the historic Alacama Theater, which is part of El Presidio de Santa Barbara State Historic Park. The Trust for Historic Preservation recently completed the restoration of this facility, which has had continuous community use since its construction as the Pueblo Theater in 1925. The beautiful interior, with its recently restored original oak floors and stage, includes a mural by American artist Ross Dickinson. All right, now let's get started. First up, we have taiko drumming by Ojai Odaiko's artistic director, Gavin Takase-Sanchez. Ojai Odaiko was founded in 2017. Its mission is to preserve and teach the art of taiko drumming, as well as provide opportunities to advance cultural awareness through performance and learning. The discipline of mind, body, and spirit is the foundation of this art and establishes the true essence of taiko. Hula Anyone is an intergenerational and multicultural performing art group that has been sharing and teaching the art of hula here in Santa Barbara for the past 46 years. Their first number is Na Vaqueros. The artist, Kuana Torres, highlights the blending of the Spanish influence with the Hawaiians.
Vaqueros na pua sevania o ka aina aloha. Ua lave ia mai na kika ma ka aina o Espanya no ka lehu lehu. O ka wahine ui e hula na mai en un bonito traje de luna e nani o no. O na pei ka poli, ho pili corazon, ka wahine aloha. Ua hao hoa aku i nā lio, ka uika pololena, ka moku ki a koru. Ua tomi sina ia e ka lani nui Kamehameha. O ka wahine ui e hula na mai en un bonito traje de luna e nani o no. O na pei ka poli, o pili corazon, ka wahine aloha. Bailando entre la música de mi corazón. Tu amor es lo más lindo del mundo, hagamos el amor en la noche, bajo las estrellas. O ka wahine ui e hula na mai, en un bonito traje de luna, en nani o no. O na pei ka poli, o pili corazon, ka wahine aloha. Mira mi amor bailando entre la música y na mere vaqueros.
Deborah Cristobal is one of our Asian American Affinity Group committee members at the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation. Deborah wrote Happy Sad New Year, which was performed on stage for Christmas Memories with Speaking of Stories at Center Stage Theater and also as part of Pangea's Playhouse's online show.
My piece is Happy Sad New Year. Every year after the holidays, my family would go to the Japanese American Citizens League, or JACL, New Year's potluck at the Pismo Beach Vets Hall. JACL is the oldest and largest Asian American civil rights organization. I'm proud to say that my grandpa, Walter Tsukamoto, was one of its founding members. The Vets Hall sits on a hill overlooking the city, and there is a wonderful view from there. It always amazed me to see so many Japanese people in one place. They came from neighborhood cities, Los Osos, San Luis, and Arroyo Grande. When I was in high school, in my hometown of Morro Bay, Besides my younger sister, there was only one other Japanese family, and they had a kid who was a 7th grader. I sure as heck wasn't hanging out with him. The other couple of Japanese students we had were older than I was, and they had only been there when I was in junior high. It was fun seeing all the men gathered outside doing the barbecuing and all the ladies in the kitchen putting last-minute touches on all the food. After dinner, they always showed a Japanese film on a projector. It was usually black and white, but sometimes they were in color. They were always subtitled, and they never had happy endings. A lot of the times, the actors would go crazy or commit suicide, and this used to disturb me to no end. I remember one film where the lead female character went insane and started chopping things up, including herself, and there was a lot of blood, and of course, that one was in color. Like most of America, I was raised on Disney. I remember watching The Wonderful World of Disney and seeing almost every Disney kids film that came out when I was growing up. Back in the day, movies made great babysitters, and I loved seeing them, all at the one theater we had in my hometown. Of course, the ones with the princes, princesses, and castles, those were my favorites. I was used to happy endings, and it was comforting to know that you could always depend on things working out in my childhood films. In the summer, after my high school sophomore year, I was a teacher's aide for some Japanese students from Japan. It was a great adventure, as I lived at Tropicana Village in San Luis, where the college kids stayed without my family. The teachers were our chaperones. The visiting students were really sweet, and even though they were close to my age, they seemed vastly different from me and my friends. They were very innocent and much more inclusive in their social groups, unlike their American counterparts. I remember going through the cafeteria line at breakfast before class, and one of the workers remarked that I spoke good English. I was shocked. Could he really be mistaking me for a Japanese person from Japan? Ironically, I did not feel like I was a very Japanesey person. My favorite food is Italian. And I prided myself on my Americanness, cool clothes that I made, and great California suntan. Even though I am full Japanese, 4th generation, or Yonsei, I could not relate to Japanese people from Japan. They seemed almost as foreigners to me, with their pale skin, tiny figures, and more preppy way of dressing. This is probably because I did not have any close relatives who were not already Americanized. Even my grandma was pretty hip, and she was definitely not your typical little old lady in a kimono whipping up sushi. I couldn't understand why all these Japanese films were so depressing and why they kept showing them to us year after year. Now that I've grown up, I can definitely see the beauty in celebrating the sadness that sometimes comes in life. I can even embrace it. Ironically, when I'm acting, I love doing sad scenes and even crying, which is the total opposite of my real self. As the oldest child with no brothers, I was taught to maintain my cool and not be a baby, and that crying in front of someone was just not acceptable. Even though I'm a very girly girl, was voted most feminine in my high school, I sometimes felt like emotionally I was almost raised as a boy. I'm sure if I would have had a brother, he would have had even harder emotional rules to follow. Maybe that is why I enjoy acting so much. It gives me permission to express myself through my characters. Performing sad scenes is enjoyable for me, as I can feel my emotions as my character. I'm also able to yell, have a fit, without having the repercussions or disapproval from anyone close to me. One of my favorite movies of all time is the Japanese film 1,778 Stories of Me and My Wife, which is, I just learned, based on a true story. It is charming, funny, and extremely sad. It shows a loving husband's devotion to his wife by writing her a funny story every day in order to make her laugh. And that is in the hope that the laughter might cure her terminal illness. I saw this film at the Santa Barbara Film Festival at the small theater in the Santa Barbara Museum of Art. And when the really sad part came, I could hear everyone in the audience sobbing, including the gentleman sitting next to me. I've never, in all my life, and with all the films I've seen, ever experienced anything like it. I had cried so much that my whole face of makeup came off, and I had to run home and put on another face so I could be presentable again. It was wonderful to share such an emotional experience with a whole room full of avid film goers like myself. Now that I'm older, I find that I can relate more to Japanese people from Japan, and I'm very proud to be Asian. I have a few Asian friends, and I'm on a really fun Asian history committee through the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation. Looking at photos from high school, I see the young, small-town girl I was, and thinking back to those past New Year's gatherings, it is always with very fond memories. I realize how the richness of life experience has changed and mellowed some of my earlier views. And as a result, I can now appreciate and enjoy Japanese films with sad endings.
Here is Hula Anyone's second mele song, Papalina Lahilahi. Dancer Marc Nicolas portrays poetical references to mist, rain, or spray.
Ia oela, ko papalina lahilahi, I ka ho'opulu mau ia la, I ka hune o ke kai. E aloha wau ia oela, ko papalina lahilahi, I ka ho'opulu mau ia la, I ka hune o ke kai. He aha noho I ka ula, o ke ala wiki ana mai, ua I ke iho no oela, a he pua o e ua ko ia. He aha noho I ka ula, o ke ala wiki ana mai, ua I ke iho no oela, a he pua o e ua ko ia. Ha'awi he molele ia la, mai ke he po'a ka hipu, he aha noho I ka ula, o ka pula le lale ana mai. Ha'awi he molele ia la, mai ke po'a ka hi'u, he aha noho I ka ula, o ka pula le lale ana mai. la ko Papalina Lahilahi Haina ho kapuana la e aloha vawia oe Haina mai kapuana la ko Papalina Lahilahi Haina ho kapuana la e aloha vawia oe
Helen Wong is another treasured volunteer with the Trust's Asian American Affinity Group. She was born in Santa Barbara and has lived her whole life here. She will now tell a story about her first trip outside of the U.S. Enjoy.
I never knew I was Chinese until the summer of 1970 when I was 20 years old. It was my first time overseas, and I was excited to be able to travel, especially for the first time to Taiwan. I went with a group of overseas Chinese young people who had been born and raised outside of China. It wasn't as wonderful as I thought it was going to be. It was also strange yet familiar. The people all looked like me. That was comforting. But people would begin to talk to me and then realize that I couldn't understand them. They would then talk to me in broken English like other white people. That made me feel stupid. I never knew that Chinese was more than one language. I thought Chinese was one language, and that was the one language that my parents and their friends spoke. I was disappointed that I couldn't understand these people's Chinese, so I tried not to say anything so that I might pass. Some people were fooled, but not for long. The Taiwanese could tell that I was different by my walk and by mannerisms. It was very isolating to only be able to talk to the people that I was with. It was nearly impossible to speak to the local people. And the food was so strange. Breakfast was the worst. Rice gruel. I wasn't used to eating rice in the morning. I knew my parents and real Chinese people ate rice in the morning, but not me. Rice at dinner was okay, but breakfast, it was too strange. I wanted everything to be familiar and comfortable because it was closer to my ethnic roots than any Chinatown I had ever been in. One day, I went with some friends onto the American base in Taipei. It was home! American people, American cars. It felt so good and familiar, but every American on the base was white. Some of them were staring at us. I couldn't understand it until it slowly dawned on me. They were feeling strange and alienated in a foreign land, and being on the American base was home for them too. But there were these people who looked like the locals on the base. What were we doing on the base, acting so free? We were infringing on their piece of home, and we did not belong. We had brought the outside onto the base. I had never felt so different until that moment. I did not belong with the Taiwanese, but the Americans certainly not claiming me either. I could never escape my face and skin color. I would always be different and never truly belong in either world. I was a banana, yellow on the outside, like other Chinese, but white on the inside because I grew up in America. I felt like I had been rejected by both worlds. I realized that while growing up in America, I had always been secretly ashamed of my race and parents. I came home and thought about what happened that day on the base. In time, I realized that it's okay to be different and at times to be proud of my differences. I didn't need to be ashamed. I had been rejected by both worlds and now felt free to do whatever I wanted. I could take the best from both cultures, and it did not matter what either culture thought of me.
Keith Marr is another member of our Asian American Affinity Group Committee here at Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation. He is a spoken word poet who works in images, colors, and unflinchingly honest personal stories. His poetry asks questions about race, identity, self-love, and social justice. Intensely personal, his work seeks moments of emotional connection through the depiction of universal experiences. Keith believes that spoken word can build bridges between communities, help celebrate roots, and inspire a sense of social connection at a time our culture is urgently in need of it.
This is for my mom and dad. They passed away before I found poetry, and poetry found me. I believe they wanted me to be the voice they never had. This is also for all you ballers out there. This is called Ode to Basketball and Asian America. The time has come to celebrate ourselves. The time has come to reclaim ourselves. We reclaim ourselves through our spoken word. America, we are bursting at the seams with stories you've never heard. We restore ourselves as we speak the unspoken, as we speak the unspeakable. We renew ourselves through our verses' rhythm and flow. We're the lyrical version of the give and go. We're the shake and bake and the pick and roll. Our poetic hang time is way beyond control, and our flow is so fluently fluid, we're liquid. As the master Bruce said, be like H2O. Now, hope I don't seem to be bragging, but when we bust our moves, tongues will be wagging. Wagging and whispering. It's the Asian dragon. You see, our family names go back thousands of years. We have a love for the game. We have no peers. We are a sight to behold when we get hot. We've been communing with God at the Church of the 3-point shot. But even in these most sacred of places, the highest court in the land, a voice rings out, "Hey, Egg Foo Young." Let me break it down. I am not a food. Do not rob me of my humanity. America, when we first landed, you keep asking, just what are you? Where are you from? And when I say Fresno, California, you say, no, where are you from? You say, where were you born? And when I say Fresno, California, you say, no, I mean, where were you really born? You say, I mean, where was your mother born? And when I say Fresno, California, you say, what I really mean is, where was your grandmother born? And I say, would you believe Fresno, California? But the questions have turned to violence. Now, an 83-year-old Korean grandmother is knocked to the ground, kicked in the head, left bleeding, while the female assailant yells, white power. Now, women, men, the young and the elderly are spit on, attacked with words, knives, acid, set on fire, murdered. Now, 6 Asian women are shot dead in Atlanta. Now, I carry a heavy stick in my backpack. After 5 generations, I am still an alien in the land of my birth. Without a greeting, people ask if I speak English when I open my front door. For a moment, I'm that 5-year-old on the playground I was before. I take that 5-year-old by the hand And together we look America straight in the eye and we say, America, you are a home with the front door closed. We say, America, what are we? We're a bridge, a connection, the intersection. We're a link to a million voiceless voices. America, we are not what you want us to be. We are not meek. We are not docile. Oh no. America, we are not what you're expecting to see. We are not your one-dimensional, cardboard, feminized, pasteurized, modern-day coolie model minority. We are a luminous dream that our forefathers sing. We are a glorious golden choir lifting our voices in song for ourselves and our children. This is our country, and we belong. We are the strength of character of those imprisoned in the camps. We're the railroad workers who drove the spikes, but were left out of the dance, whose lost lives birthed a new saying, ain't got a Chinaman's chance. We are Fred Korematsu, defied the internment all the way to the Supreme Court, refused to go in. We are, all of us, Jeremy Lin. We're the heartache and the heartbreak. We will never, ever, ever shake. For the murder without justice of Vincent Chin. We are the talking walls of the Chinese immigrants on Angel Island. We are Wat Misaka, a Japanese American, the first person of color to break the color line in the NBA. We're the in-your-face edge of Margaret Cho. We're the children of our ancestors. We honor tradition, but take it strong to the whole. We are silence transformed into action. And at the end of the day, we are Carlos Bulusan, who still carried America in his heart after all he endured. And we have not lost hope in the promise of what America can be. If a seed must be planted, if a vision must be imagined, then now is the time. It's been time. It is about time. We celebrated ourselves.
Tabatha, Angelita, Marc, Corey, Cami, and Nia from Hula Anyone will now dance Henehene ko Aka. This tells of a story when the streetcar made it to Hawaii and the fun rides on it.
Henehene ko Aka, ko le'ale'a paha, hime ama uia, for you and I. Henehene ko Aka, ko le'ale'a paha, hime ama uia, for you and I. Kauila ma ke neki, ho'oni oni ke kino, hime ama uia, for you and I. Kauila ma ke neki, ho'oni oni ke kino, hime ama uia, for you and I. I kakako mako, ai ana I ka pipistu, hime ama uia, for you and I. I kakako mako, ai ana I ka pipistu, hime ama uia, for you and I. Aina mai ka puana, ko le'ale'a paha, hime ama uia, for you and I. Yama'ama'uia for you and I.
Paul, Mori, and friends perform an instrumental arrangement of Hamachi-dori, the Plover, a Japanese folk song that his mother sang when she was a child growing up in California's Imperial Valley. Prior to the performance, Paul tells the story of his immigrant grandmother, who left her small village in the mountains above Hiroshima as a very young woman. Paul Mori is a longtime member of the Trust's Asian American Affinity Group and is a local performing artist and music educator. He is joined today by Tim Beccue, cello, and Laurie Rasmussen on harp.
The lyric melody of the Japanese folk song Hamachi-dori, or the Plover, evokes such calming beauty. Yet I often wonder what my grandmother felt when she listened to my mother sing the song when she was a young girl. Did she think of what she lost when she left Japan? Or did she see something of herself in the orphan shorebird? The lyrics of Hamachi-dori set the scene beautifully. The evening moon shimmers its guiding light upon the shores, and the gentle lapping waves pulse with a calming reassurance. In the midst of this, a solitary plover scampers along the shores looking for its mother. When the search is in vain, the young plover's eyes turn towards the moonlit horizon one last time. You see, my grandmother made a final promise to her father as a condition of her leaving, a promise that ultimately she did not keep and could not possibly keep. "I'll be back," she insisted. Upon her departure, if there were not tears visible, there certainly must have been held in check only with hope and stoicism. She was barely out of her teens. Access to America was weeks away via steamship, and the fare a small fortune for a Japanese farm family. America was as distant as another planet. In the end, it wasn't my grandmother who broke that promise. A world at war and the hardships of making a life in America chipped away at the promise until it decayed into fragments that slipped from her grasp. She would never see her father or mother again. She would never set foot in the village of her youth. Yet, did her eyes ever gaze across the ocean to the country of her birth? If there were sadness in her, we, her grandchildren, never saw it. My grandmother was a kind and gentle and cheerful woman. She doted on us and made sure our stomachs were filled with the best food ever. Of course, there was Japanese food, but the best of America was on the table as well. Her potato salad and fried chicken were so delicious that you'd swear the recipes had been passed down for generations. As a young wife, she learned how to make tortillas and tamales from the wives of the Mexican farm workers who worked my grandfather's cantaloupe fields. Each Thanksgiving and Christmas, she roasted a turkey for her family. And where she learned how to make apple pie, I'll never know. But I do know it was famous among the Japanese community in California's Imperial Valley because only she had the skill. My grandmother, who was never comfortable speaking English, was, as they say, as American as apple pie. Imagine that. I'll truly never know what my grandmother thought when my mother sang Hamachi-dori, but I'd like to think that she could see Japan from the shores of California.
Hula Anyone's last piece will be Le o Oheno. It is a dance woven with warm thoughts, well wishes, with positive energy to wear as you move forward each day. Angelita, Cami, Corey, Eileen, Tabatha, and Nia bids you all a wonderful aloha and mahalo for this opportunity to share Hawaiian culture.
Let